Coonan.
Here.
Lutz.
Here.
Herrick.
Here.
Warren Brothers.
Thank you. Minutes of May 16, 2017. What's your pleasure?
I'll move.
Support. Moved and supported. All in favor, signify with your sign.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. It's time for public input. Anyone wishing to address the committee will come forward, please.
Good afternoon. Today's topic is going to be credibility. Mr. Lutz, would you be so kind as to show these pictures? One at a time. There's a picture of the 1974 Tobico Marsh. Well, that's a pretty good picture. That's before anything was done. This is a 2014 picture from the DEQ website. And this is off their own website. There's nothing conjured up, nothing that's made up. It's off their own site. Now, drain law. Run you 7 copies here, 3 over. Talk about drainage laws. I thought this was the simplest one to read because it doesn't have all the mumbo jumbo into it. Also notice that there was a article about something with beach being closed. The only difference in this article and the first one is they said nothing about termination and what caused it. The reason they did is because I took a copy of the bacterial report over to the gentleman that wrote this, and he couldn't believe it. Now, we also know that here from the, I believe it's from the Free Press, 15 people criminally charged in Flint. Willful neglect of duties, conspiracies, the list goes on. There's a whole host of them. This is another one off the DEQ site, attainment. Guess which area is in the attainment? McCollin, Saginaw, Sheboygan. The list goes on to this. We have the EPA echo. We talk about our so-called wastewater treatment plants. Just the 3. They didn't go all the way in. They're all in the red. No attainment. Clean Water Violation Act, red. Now this is the DEQ. They're supposed to be handling this. Your county profile and health. Everything's right here. University of Washington. They have the information. Public sector group. So we're all aware of that. August of 2000. They talk about sediment and bacteria in here. In August of 2000, the DEQ does not know what it is. They seem to know. Applied environmental microbiology. Very good report here. They seem to know too. Here's another one from the same group, a little bit more in depth as far as what the problem is. So now we go in and we say, what is the problem? The marsh is an area that contains water. Back in the 70s, they had all kinds of flooding, and the Detroit-Mackinac Railroad was complaining their railroad bridge was being washed out, so the Corps of Engineers came in to take and fix it. They blocked off the road. They went from 2 bridges on down to an 8-foot tube. So, mind you, in 1956, when the natural water flow doctrine was brought in, this was in the 70s, they took it upon themselves to block off that flow out of the Tobico Marsh. You go back to 1916, it was called Tobico Bay. What took place? Flow of water. Gone. That's all right here. This paper. Now here's some good ones here. This is from historicaerials.com. This is 1954. And in this one here, if you would be so kind, Mr. Lutz, to show that there's a complete aerial shot in 1954 of the marsh in the lagoon.
Isn't the marsh and the lagoon the same thing?
The marsh is the upper part of the Tobico Marsh. The lagoon is on the other side of Tobico Road, as it's known today.
It's all in the body, right? I just saw it.
The body of water is supposed to be as one on the natural flow. Here's 1954 showing the 2 bridges at Tobico Road, if you care to show that.
I'll get a van.
And this one here, this shows you the water behind Little Clarny Beach. And this hole right over here is where I used to live. Not in 1954, but there was water back here all the way. Go back and take a look at the changes. So we got credibility from the DEQ Corps of Engineers and from some other interested parties, which we're not going to finger point because I think in court of law that will come out in time. Now we're going to jump over to the Bayside Park, the Peerless Report. 2 pages was given. There's 120 pages. In here, it talks about the contact. It does not allow anything to do with the activity of living because it does not meet the criteria level for residential standards. But it meets it for your recreational standard. But the guy said, I would build a home on it. DEQ didn't know the top was taken off. It was pushed to the south over Toppling Road, 2 was pulled. That blocked it off. Now, was it a park? Here is the 2002 master plan for Bangor Township. And here on pages 56 and 57, it is showing here township recreational facilities. 27 acres located just west of Bangor Road, Zimmer Road, 1925. The site was given to the township for the sole purpose of developing recreational facilities for the residents of Bangor Township. Doesn't say a thing about confined disposal facility, which the Corps of Engineers has classified it as an upland confined disposal facility. So I would dare that person that can take that off and come forward, because they can. Now, here's the Michigan Right to Farm Act. We're going to go into property takings now. The Michigan Right to Farm Act, as you can see, we're talking about the Morley issue. The Morley issue is 130 acres that was blocked off from water flow. So where does that leave him? Leaves him with nothing, with 130 acres and nothing. Was there a plan? Well, here's February 2014. If you really want to get into seeing how many properties they want, here's all the list. Here's the other part of the list. And you'll notice the insignia. Now, when I look at credibility, I look at being able to trust the people that are elected to office, that are holding office, that are appointed office. I don't expect them to tell me everything because there are some things that are confidential. There are some things I don't need to know. But when you're asked a question, you should at least be able to give them an answer. And I find it strange that we waited this long to say, wow, we got a problem over in the Tobical Marsh because the marsh is being held with water. And it's strange that the current in the bay goes out the channel, turns around, and comes back. Look it up on Great Lakes Current. You can see it. And if you want to see what it looks like on a sunny day, go to MODIS, M-O-D-I-S. You'll get to see it. Both credible sites, they're NOAA. Why would I doubt my government, right? People in Flint didn't doubt their government either. 15 people now on the hook. Will there be more? Probably. One person's persistence, Melissa Mays. That's what did it. I would think it's about time maybe that we start looking into what we got to do here, because I think we're being led down the wrong path by the DEQ, Corps of Engineers, and so forth. Really need to take a hard look. Do some soul searching. Any questions?
Mr. Cricket.
Thank you. Mike, that website again, MODIS?
MODIS, M-O-D-I-S.
And that will
Go
show,
back about 16 days.
but it will show the current flow going out.
It will show an actual satellite picture of the bay, and you can see the algae coming out of the streams, ditches, and so forth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Parcher.
Yeah, Mike, I want to thank you for your testimony today before the board. And just say, I know we've discussed many times, and I appreciate all the information you've supplied to my office to review. I can recall the days when I was younger when people used to fish in that lagoon. But it's my understanding that water, due to the current changes, it's basically dead water that doesn't sustain wildlife. Is that your perception as well?
The water is stagnant. It's deoxygenated by the DEQ standards, not by anybody else's standards, in the Tobical Marsh. You have waterfall, which is leaving when you itself. You look at the bacterial report, you will see probably one of your main causes. That's not counting the ditches with Capo farms, and the list goes on and on and on. But that is your nearest problem right now. When they put the weir in, they took the bridge out and it went from probably about a 40 or 50 foot opening down to an 8 foot opening. You restricted the flow. When they put the weir in, they built both ends in, made it like a dike. Then they built a bridge over, when they could have built a bridge over the entire area. And that restricted the flow. And then they tried to blame it on the beavers. Well, what do beavers do? They like to build a thing called dams. And why did they build dams? For water. But when the water is stagnant, what do you have? The Nuclear Regulatory Commission did a study back there in 2002, December, and January 2003. And they were testing for all the nasty IUMs. And I noticed something in the map that it led me to believe that they were testing north. When I called them, they said that that is exactly what they were doing. The water flow originally went south through the lagoon. You go back there today and you'll see on one side of the road it's filled in. On the other side there's only a little tiny creek running there. So it's pretty much changed by man and poor decisions by organizations, groups, and parts of the government. That's just my opinion, but I'm backing it up with all their facts off their websites.
Yeah, well, I know Laura Hogar, our Director of Environmental Affairs and Community Development, we should engage in discussion with CORE and the DNR. Of course, any of the commissioners have dedicated so much of their time and resources to restoring as many amenities to basically state parks as we can. I think that the lagoon would be a popular fishing pond. I believe it used to contain a number of bass and stuff. Prior to the work that you've highlighted today, I've received nothing but complaints. It's just dead water. It doesn't support anything. Just as far as wildlife or fish. So,
Just a little side note, somehow when my granddaughter was watching the movie, an old one, it's called Convoy. Ernest Borgnine, Chris Christopherson driving a truck. And Ernest Borgnine said, now that I've got you, he said, I want you to remember, you got to pay the fine. So the fine, he says, is going to be, he said, because the few are going to have to suffer for the greater majority of this town. Now, I've heard that saying before, but I can't quite place where I heard it from. It's unique to say the least when you hear that. This was back 70s, 80s.
yeah, well, thank you very much, Mike. And well, Laura had a conflict, so she couldn't be at today's board meeting, but I know she's aware of it. We've had discussions, and we ought to try to press those regulatory agencies to see what they think about somehow restructuring those changes that were made to hopefully get a lagoon that can sustain fish. It's a nice asset to the park, and a lot of our handicapped people, whatever, could use that trail system to just throw a line over the water and hopefully get a nibble or a couple of bites and land a fish or something. But anyway, thank you, Mike, for your comments. We all do really care about trying to enhance the quality of the water.
Well, what you do today is real simple. It's going to affect kids and grandkids for your next generation. I've got an 8-year-old granddaughter that's asking me, what am I doing? Here I am. Thank you.
Well, you're definitely tenacious on your goal, that's for sure. So, thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Anyone else wishes to address our committee today? Seeing none under petitions and communications,